Basically, what happens in the US is I think that the healthcare system is for a lot of people no longer sustainable, which means that if they need the help of the healthcare system, they're often not able to afford it.
Yeah.
And when they cannot help it, they are often going bankrupt. It's, I think, the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in the US is the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And that would not be necessary. It's not because people are consuming more and more medical services and are achieving a much, much longer life as a result. That's not actually the story that is happening, because you can compare it to other countries. And life expectancy in the US is currently not increasing, and it's not as high as in all the other industrialized countries. So some industrialized countries are doing better with a much cheaper healthcare system. And what you can see is, for instance, administrative bloat. The healthcare system has, maybe to some degree deliberately, set up its job placement program to allow people to continue living a middle-class existence despite not having a useful use case in productivity. So they are being paid to push paper around. And the number of administrators in the healthcare system has been increasing much faster than the number of practitioners. And this is something that you have to pay for, right? And also the revenues that are being generated in the healthcare system are relatively large, and somebody has to pay for them. And the result why they are so large is because market mechanisms are not working. Right? The FDA is largely not protecting people from malpractice of healthcare providers. The FDA is protecting healthcare providers from competition.
Right. Okay.
So this is a thing that has to do with values. And this is not because people are malicious on all levels. It's because they are not incentivized to act on a greater whole, on this idea that you treat somebody who comes to you as a patient like you would treat a family member.
But we're trying, I mean, you're highlighting a lot of the flaws of the different institutions, the systems we're operating under. But I think there's a continued throughout history mechanism design of trying to design incentives in such a way that these systems behave better and better and better. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to operate a society of hundreds of millions of people effectively with.
Yes. So do we live in a society that is ever correcting?
Right.
Do we observe that our models of what we are doing are predictive of the future, and when they are not, we improve them? Are our laws adjudicated with clauses that you put into every law what is meant to be achieved by that law, and the law will be automatically repealed if it's not achieving that, right? If you are optimizing your own laws, if you're writing your own source code, you probably make an estimate of what is the thing that's currently wrong in my life? What is it that I should change about my own policies? Mm-hmm. What is the expected outcome? And if that outcome doesn't manifest, I will change the policy back, right? Or I will change it to something different. Are we doing this on a societal level?
I think so. I think it's easy to sort of highlight I think we're doing it in the way that, like I operate my current life. I didn't sleep much last night. You would say that, Lex, the way you need to operate your life is you need to always get sleep. The fact that you didn't sleep last night is totally the wrong way to operate in your life. Like you should have gotten all your shit done in time and gotten to sleep, because sleep is very important for health. And you're highlighting, look, this person is not sleeping. Look, the healthcare system is operating poor. But the point is that it seems like this is the way, especially in the capitalist society, we operate. We keep running into trouble, and last minute we try to get our way out through innovation, and it seems to work. You have a lot of people that ultimately are trying to build a better world and get urgency about them when it's the problem becomes more and more imminent, and that's the way this operates. But if you look at the history, the long arc of history, it seems like that operating on deadlines produces progress and builds better and better systems.
You probably agree with me that the US should have engaged in mask production in January 2020, and that we should have shut down the airports early on, and that we should have made it mandatory that the people that work in nursing homes are living on campus, rather than living at home and then coming in and infecting people in the nursing homes that had no immune response to COVID. And that is something that was, I think, visible back then. The correct decisions haven't been made. If we would have the same situation again, how do we know that these wrong decisions are not being made again? Have the people that made the decisions to not protect the nursing homes been punished? Have the people that made the wrong decisions with respect to testing, that prevented the development of testing by startup companies and the importing of tests from countries that already had them, have these people been held responsible?
Yeah. Well, first of all, so what do you want to put before the firing squad? I think they are.
No, just make sure that this doesn't happen again.
No, but see, but it's not that. Yes, they're being held responsible by many voices, by people being frustrated. There's new leaders being born now that we're going to see rise to the top in 10 years. And this moves slower than, there's obviously a lot of older incompetence and bureaucracy, and these systems move slowly. They move, like science, one death at a time. So like, yes, I think the pain that's been felt in the previous year is reverberating throughout the world.
Maybe I'm getting old. I suspect that every generation in the US after the war has lost the plot even more. I don't see this development.
The war, World War II?
Yeah, so basically there was a time when we were modernist. And in this modernist time, the US felt actively threatened by the things that happened in the world. The US was worried about possibility of failure. And this imminence of possible failure led to decisions, right? There was a time when the government would listen to physicists about how to do things.
Yeah.
And the physicists were actually concerned about what the government should be doing. So they would be writing letters to the government. And so, for instance, the decision for the Manhattan Project was something that was driven in a conversation between physicists and the government. I don't think such a discussion would take place today.
I disagree. I think if the virus was much deadlier, we would see a very different response. I think the virus was not sufficiently deadly. And instead, because it wasn't very deadly, what happened is the current system started to politicize it. The mask, this is what I realized with masks early on. They were not, very quickly became not as a solution, but they became a thing that politicians used to divide the country. So that same thing is happening with vaccines, same thing. So like people weren't talking about solutions to this problem because I don't think the problem was bad enough. When you talk about the war, I think our lives are too comfortable. I think in the developed world, things are too good and we have not faced severe dangers. When the severe dangers, existential threats are faced, that's when we step up on a small scale and a large scale. Now, that's sort of my argument here, but I did think the virus I was hoping that it was actually sufficiently dangerous for us to step up, because especially in the early days, it was unclear. It still is unclear because of mutations, how bad it might be, right? And so I thought we would step up. And even so, the masks point is a tricky one, because to me, the manufacture of masks isn't even the problem. I'm still to this day, and I was involved with a bunch of this work, have not seen good science done on whether masks work or not. Like there still has not been a large scale study. To me, there should be large scale studies on every possible solution, like aggressive, in the same way that the vaccine development was aggressive. There should be masks which test what kind of tests work really well, what kind of like even the question of how the virus spreads. There should be aggressive studies on that to understand. I'm still, as far as I know, there's still a lot of uncertainty about that. Nobody wants to see this as an engineering problem that needs to be solved. It's that I was surprised about, but I
find that our views are largely convergent, but not completely. So I agree with this thing that because our society, in some sense, perceives itself as too big to fail,
right?
And the virus did not alert people to the fact that we are facing possible failure. That basically put us into the postmodernist mode. And I don't mean in a philosophical sense, but in a societal sense. The difference between a postmodern society and the modern society is that the modernist society has to deal with the ground truth, and the postmodernist society has to deal with appearances. Politics becomes a performance, and the performance is done for an audience, and the organized audience is the media. And the media evaluates itself via other media, right? So you have an audience of critics that evaluate themselves. And I don't think it's so much the failure of the politicians, because to get in power and to stay in power, you need to be able to deal with the published opinion.
Well, I think it goes in cycles because what's going to happen is all of the small business owners, all the people who truly are suffering and will suffer more because of the effects of the closure of the economy and the lack of solutions to the virus, they're going to uprise and hopefully, I mean, this is where charismatic leaders can get the world in trouble, but hopefully will elect great leaders that will break through this postmodernist idea of the media and the perception and the drama on Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
But this can go either way.
Yeah.
When the Weimar Republic was unable to deal with the economic crisis that Germany was facing, there was an option to go back. But there were people which thought, let's get back to a constitutional monarchy and let's get this to work, because democracy doesn't work. And eventually, there was no way back. But people decided there was no way back. They needed to go forward. And the only options for going forward was to become Stalinist communist, basically an option to completely expropriate the factories and so on and nationalize them, and to reorganize Germany in communist terms and ally itself with Stalin, and fascism. And both options were obviously very bad. And the one that the Germans picked led to a catastrophe that devastated Europe. And I'm not sure if the US has an immune response against that. I think that the far right is currently very weak in the US, but this can easily change.